It's time for Market Explainer, your number one business news podcast. Hosted by Danny and the big man. And it starts right now.
All right. So this first one, our good friend, let's go Brandon Sanderson.
No.
So here's what happened.
Brandon
we have a little
Sanderson.
Correct. We have a little pre-show dialogue, and I just said, let's go Brandon Sanderson. And the big man had a problem with that. So now I have to do it. And this is after the big man was like, I'm not feeling good today. Can we do this tomorrow? So now I'm kicking him when he's down. So,
Danny's anarchist, what I mean? Side just kind of.
I can't help it. So this dude, and the big man has a lot of thoughts here, and I had to stop him and say, we're gonna talk about this on the show.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest Kickstarter campaign to raise money ever was the Pebble smartwatch. It was the e-paper, like it went out of business already. And that was a decade ago. And this guy shows up and says, I'm going to write, he's going to launch a book a quarter starting next year.
Right.
Here's why I love the story about this author. I'm not an anti-sci-fi guy. You don't think it's like, oh, it's nerdy, you're idiots. That's not it at all. It's just, I love the genre when it's a movie. Okay. So I'm never going to read any of these books. This guy's an author. He's a sci-fi author. The reason I love the story is I think he gave himself 30 days to raise $1 million. He smoked it in 35 minutes. I think as of today, or as of when I plucked the story, when I curated it, $41 million.
Yeah. As of yesterday, when I checked it, right at like 41.8, 40.8.9.
That is,
like that,
R.R. Martin, that is J.K. Rowling money. That is silly time banana pants for a fiction author. Now, one of my favorite writers is a guy named Michael Malice. I've never read any of his books because who has the time? But he was doing one of those Q&As. He's giving advice, and someone's like, I really want to write a sci-fi book. And he's like, listen, fiction is a nearly impossible genre to bounce in, to really like have success in.
Right.
And this is a guy who has multiple bestsellers, and so he's like, nonfiction is really where you're going to make the money. So with that piece of knowledge from a best-selling author, to see this guy who I've never heard of, whose books I will never read, who, listen, one of my girlfriends at some point in time will be like, hey, puppy, I want to go see that new movie, Sanderson book. They all talk like that, so it's not racist. I have a type, we all do.
I have no opinion on what just happened. I know.
So I just say, like, this guy, $41 million. Okay, let me tell you something. I will go do ayahuasca in a forest to come up with a sci-fi concept. And you're giving out $41 million.
Well, but you don't even have to go to, like, here's what I don't. And again, I'm not bagging on Brandon Sanderson here or anything like that. I'm not a huge reader, as you know, as well, but I do like the movies and the comic books and stuff like that. This guy has basically taken RPGs from the 80s and 90s and put them in storybook. When you read, look, I'm not going to go into the details.
What's an RPG?
Role-playing games.
Okay, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
D&D kind of stuff, but on like PlayStation and you know what I mean?
I thought you meant rocket-propelled grenade. Because that's where my head's at. Yeah.
Yes. No. Role-playing games back in the day had to have a story. That's one of they won awards. Like role-playing games, video games have won awards for storytelling for decades. Because for a really good RPG.
Yeah, but every real estate office in this country has we're the Ford Diamond Award. Everyone wins an award.
No. I'm talking about for storytelling, like books, whatever awards that actual books get.
Right.
Back in the day, role-playing games were getting the same awards because that's the more in-depth the story was, the world that you were playing in was, the better the RPG and the more it got played. There are still versions of those games. Final Fantasy VII came out 20-something years ago, is still considered one of the best video games ever made, even beside the ones that are today, right? In playing time, right?
Yeah,
So,
and my favorite, of course, is Mortal Kombat, but that's just me.
but even Mortal Kombat, they've made
Yeah,
into a universe, right? They've made a couple of movies. None of them have been great, but
yeah,
again, they once they create a world that people
right.
enjoy, and that's
Yeah.
what this guy did. He took what I think is actually a Final Fantasy idea,
Knockoff.
right? Not it's a Marvel Universe knockoff. It's a
Yeah,
whatever, right? It's the Infinity Stones, right?
yeah,
Remember
yeah.
the
Okay.
Infinity Stones from Marvel, right?
No, what's that?
And it
Are
doesn't
you
matter.
spoiling it? I've never seen any of the Marvel movies. I'm a
It
DC
doesn't
guy.
matter. The
Yeah.
point is you've got one big power that's broken up into a bunch of different powers.
Yep.
Those powers are never to be combined again, and the
Yep.
stories of these different pieces
Right.
create a world, right?
Right.
There's a
Yeah.
piece that's all
So,
about bravery. There's a piece
in
that's all about
yeah,
honor.
in Power Rangers, it was the Zeo crystals.
It's Power Rangers is a great example, right? The Zeo
Yeah.
crystals give each one unique powers, but makes
Something
them
like
all
that.
more powerful,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, whatever it was. Yeah.
Right. So Danny's a big Power Rangers fan. If you didn't
I
know,
am.
he made me go see the newest Power Rangers movie when it came out.
2017. That's when that was a bajillion
Yes.
years ago.
But so this guy created a world that then has taken on, right? That people have
Yeah.
gotten into. So
Which-
and
Again,
go ahead.
this podcast, while we're a business news podcast, which we are, this is
Hmm.
as much as it's about business news. This is about unique and quirky entrepreneurship that no one is thinking about, and
100%.
this is all about. And we just in our pre-show we're talking about, hey, we're not finding the traction we're looking for. Am I picking too? Are these stories too niche? Are they too quirky? I'm like, hey, this guy just raised $41 million to write books about unicorns and wizards. I can't just sit on that and go, let's talk about Elon Musk trying to buy Twitter for $54 billion. I can't just, there's some guy right now, this guy in the very recent past knows the smell of his aunt's basement because he lived in it. Okay. And now he has $41 million. You know what you can do with $41 million?
And still
I
looks
can't-
like he lives in his grandmother's in his mom's basement. Like
Yeah, no, he looks like he could fit into our show very well. Okay.
Yeah, well, but speaking of his show, I went back in researching in this. I went
Yeah.
back and watched a bunch of his YouTube stuff and kind of went through his
Right.
YouTube channel and stuff like that. And the guy obviously is a successful epic
Author.
novelist, right? Author and that kind of stuff. I mean, he's created the Cosmere universe, but really you can see on his channel, go to his channel, up until about 6, 7, 8 months ago, it was a lot of, hey, I just want to do something. I'm bored, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to do movie reviews. I'm going to talk
And
about some stuff
would
with
you-
obviously
would you-
a buddy of his.
Would you classify his content up until a few months ago as neckbeard content?
Non-business
neckbeard,
related.
As a neckbeard,
I'm
and
not
you
a
as a
neckbeard.
neckbeard.
You jackal. Anyway, you're a jackwagon, and we all know it.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. So up until about 6 or 7 months ago, it was just normal. Hey, I'm bored and I've got a name and a following, right?
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. And then it's like the guy flipped out overnight and thought, like, had a dream one night, going, "Hey, if I make it, they will come. If I make
Yeah.
these books, people will buy them." And his content literally overnight turned into, I'm going to have 4 books come out next year, but I'm not doing it the traditional way. I'm doing it Super Troopers 2 did this, right? Like they went to Kickstarter and said, hey, we'll make another movie, but only if we can pay for it ourselves. That way we don't have to share the revenue with the studio. We'll do whatever we want when we want to do it, right? Whatever. And everybody loves to go up against the bigs, right?
Yeah.
So this guy comes out, has a following, has a world that he already has created, and says, hey, I'm going to charge you, instead of giving Amazon any money, because you don't want to give Amazon money, you want to give me your money, right? I'm the artist you love, so you don't want to, $40 for the ebook. $40 for the ebook.
I had no idea. It's $40 for the ebook.
$40 for the ebook, okay?
So he's just going to... So let me just understand.
Yeah.
It's literally just, you're paying $40 for a PDF?
Right. Of the book.
Right. So that's, but again, what does Danny always say on Market Explainer? The first lesson of market economics, free market economics, the first lesson, value is subjective. He didn't force anybody. He didn't go to Congress and say, we didn't pass a law that makes everybody buy my book. He people gave him money. And
absolutely.
I can't complain. And here's the other thing. Right now on TikTok, there's some blonde-haired, blue-eyed 22-year-old who's convincing people to pay him $175 a month to join his inside crew to learn how to do Shopify drop shipping. What's worse? Is he? I mean, at least he is delivering a fictional universe, whether it's good or bad is up to the people who are going to read it. Mm-hmm. But at least, I mean, when you put things into the context of $40 for an ebook, like, you know, I've spent more on an ebook and been disappointed, and then had to cancel my credit card because they refused to stop charging.
Well, so I mean, so this guy minimum from his followers is getting $40. All the way up to his top tier package is something like $160 for a hardback, you know what I mean, version of it, for an actual book version of it. And then, and that's not even autographed, right?
Right.
And then he sends you a bunch of quarterly, you get a bunch of knicknacks, like a bunch of, you know what I mean, swag with the names of these books on them and all this kind of stuff.
And we know people who sell this stuff. Like, hey, would you like to put your logo on a stress ball? And he's going to send you a squeeze bobblehead or whatever the heck, and we already know.
But it's going to be like it's going to be like a Warhammer or something, a squeeze Warhammer, or you know what I mean, something. My point is that he's going to create a bunch of cheap swag, right? He's going to sign some things probably once, you know, everybody will probably get a signed whatever in one of the boxes he sends out every quarter, whatever it is. But it's all going to him. He's not sharing this with Amazon. He's not sharing this with some book publisher. He's not sharing this with the whatever. I guarantee it's going to have some grammatical errors, or it's going to have some, you know what I mean? Like, because it's not going to go through the whole process, and people will like it even more because it will feel more like directly authentic. The writer to you, right? But again, you and I've said this before, is this only works if you have an already captivated audience. If he hadn't already created this Cosmere universe, right, of stories, and wasn't well known, and I give you a great example of that. If you go to his YouTube channel, you're going to see kind of his, on a lot of these books, and I think these 4 books coming out, he kind of co-wrote them with another author. She seems very nice. And I'm her name's like Janice, or I'm getting her name mixed up. It doesn't matter. You can go find her very easily. But my point is if you look at her, she's written books for quite a while now, but her books are not as successful as his, right? So if you go to her page, her channel, or whatever, the numbers are way further down. She hasn't already created an audience. She's trying to partner with him to help her books. Her creating audience, right? So you only get to $41 million when you get, again, $41 million. He only had to find 40 people to give him $1 million, or 1 million people to give him $40 a piece. Right,
but still, and the part of the what I want to do with this podcast is showcase things that I'm going to call them dumb. I don't think they're dumb, but I just think, why aren't more people going, I can hack together a universe, right?
But by the way, not a single one of his books have been made a movie or a TV show.
Not yet, but here's the other part of it, right? There are an umpteen number of streaming platforms. You have HBO and Warner. Warner just merged with Discovery. They're going to eventually turn themselves into a single platform. And what's going to happen is there is a thirst for content. And here's the other thing. Hasbro just signed a deal not too long ago with Netflix to release new Power Rangers stuff. Did it tickle me in my no-no place? It sure did. Was I excited?
That's my point. If he's already has this audience without a TV show, without a movie made about it, or whatever,
so
those things will just add.
Right. So I'm just saying this guy will have $150 to $200 million in net worth in no time because Amazon because this is the best publicity that you could ever get. Mm-hmm. Is Engadget running an article saying Pebble, the smartwatch that went out of business, was beat by a guy, a neckbeard. He doesn't have a neckbeard, but he's culturally a neckbeard, right? Writing books about the sci-fi genre, and it's so big. Hey, here's the other thing. I happen to know a guy who is the main co-host of a talk show in my hometown on the big talk station, who's written a bunch of sci-fi books. Doesn't have this kind of following, right? So I'm fascinated that this guy figured something out.
Well, I think, and you again, something you and I are trying to do on this channel, and people have figured out in the last couple of years, especially the direct to consumer model, right? But typically after you found a following, this guy can leave Amazon behind, and he kind of makes this about Amazon, like Amazon shouldn't corner the market on books, yada yada.
Yeah, whatever.
It's not believable at all. He could care less.
Marketing. It's marketing.
It's marketing. So it's just, and he's, again, if you go back and watch his YouTube videos since the llast 6 months, YouTube video after video after video after video, he must have gotten somebody's like formula or taken a class or whatever, because it's like a video about the upcoming video, and then it's a video about the video that would have been upcoming video, but should have been the next video of when I might release something. And then it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's the whole plan of creating not just urgency but excitement and all that, and then all of a sudden, bam, right, you release what you've been talking about for the last 6 months. Here's what's going to happen. So he didn't just go, hey, I'm going to make this campaign and I'm going to throw it up and kind of advertise a little bit. No, the guy spent the last 5 or 6 months making YouTube videos about he was doing something special, he was doing something different, he riled his audience. We have a huge announcement
coming. No,
he riled his audience up.
So there's 2 takeaways for Danny on this one. First of all, I thought crowdfunding was dead. I'm wrong. Crowdfunding still works. And number 2, this kind of tactics and marketing that I feel they're old. Like, we have a big announcement coming. Okay, in 2 weeks we have another announcement, and here's what blah blah blah. It still works.
Yeah,
and it works to the extent that a guy that I've never heard of, right, whose books I'm never going to read. I've heard of George R.R. Martin, okay? I know that whatever his, I'm familiar with the fact that he has Game of Thrones. I've never watched Game of Thrones. I don't have the time or the patience, frankly. I'm not reading the books. I'm not going to watch the show. I hear it's great. But anytime someone who's into it, I always go, oh, what's that? To like piss them off. Like, I've never heard of that. Oh, so it's like it's set like in America and like colonial times, just to piss them off.
Yeah.
But incredible that this is possible. And I'm telling you, Netflix will, I'm going to think it's Netflix or Hulu, because one of them is going to go, hey, we need our own Marvel Cinematic Universe, because Disney already has the MCU.
Right.
HBO already has Game of Thrones, and they're backdating and doing this new series of whatever the heck it's called. And Amazon already has Lord of the Rings, and they're redoing the Lord of the Rings show, whatever. So all of these people already have their universe. Netflix and Hulu need a universe. Looks like these 2 chumps are in line,
I would agree.
So,
you got to think that's the next step. And the guy, I did watch a video of him talking about this specifically, the movies or whatever. There's been a couple of different studios that have tried, and it just didn't happen. That happens in movies a lot of times.
It takes 2 or 3
TV shows.
It's like knocking over a Coke machine, right? You can't do it in one foul swoop. You got to do it a couple times. It takes a couple of knocks at it.
But also, sci-fi and fantasy they're expensive, right?
Yes.
I mean, Lord of the Rings was insanely expensive to.
Yes.
I mean, you can make like 5 rom-coms for what it would take for one Lord of the Rings movies, right? So they're very expensive to create, and in a new world, it's very if you don't know how the general public are gonna receive it. There was a movie that came out, I don't know, 15 years ago called The Golden Compass.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of the books. I'd never heard of the writer, right? But I went and saw the movie, and I really liked the movie. But the general consensus was people didn't like the movie. They thought it was boring. So they were slated to make like 4 of those movies because the books were so popular. They made the one. And they canceled the other movies because the general public, for whatever reason, just didn't catch on.
Now, in closing, I just want to backdraft off of the big man statement. Nobody cared about the sci-fi universe Golden Compass, but Fast and Furious has made 10 movies, okay? Every single last one of them grossed $1 billion. Okay. So
you're right.
When it comes to universes, all right.
Yeah.
We're going to jump into this next thing. But before we do that, I want to let you know Market Explainer has a Patreon. We are adding new and different content there all the time. The full video is always available for free without ads, at least our ads on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/marketexplainer, and you can go to marketexplainer.com and learn a little bit more about all of our other jazz.